За да поговорим за плейсмейкинг и за мрежите, поканих Vivian Doumpa, която е и приятел, и колега. Заедно с нея сме в борда на Placemaking Европа, който бих споделила, че се забра за първи път в Пловдив през 2018 по времето на Placemaking Connected, за да ни разкаже повече за историята на глобалната Placemaking мрежа, защото освен, че тя се развива в България, тя се развива и по целия свят. В момента се създават мрежи от Япония. Сега видях, че ще обявяват Placemaking мрежата в Тайланд, Бразилия, Мексико, Швейцария преди няколко дена, в Полша също създават Placemaking мрежа, така че Placemaking е вече една лавина в цял свят и се обединяваме не само ние тук в България, много експерти. Vivian Doumpa, she is a Greek urban geographer. Her heart is moved by communities, art and culture. This is, what I remember. She is a fantastic placemaker, and also, as I said, she is a colleague of mine from Placemaking Europe, and she will share what is placemaking, what is placemaking in the region, why it's important to connect, and what's next. Welcome.
Hi. Hi everyone, very nice to be here again and very nice to see you, some of you again. Since either in Plovdiv in 2018, I was sure it was 2019, but I think pandemic stole me 1 year from my memory, at least. But very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. Personal story, in Sofia, I'm from Thessaloniki originally, so it was the first trip I have ever done in my life outside of Greece when I was 6 years old, and I remember landing in Sofia and remembering the big public spaces and the parks. I was really amazed, coming from a city that we don't really have parks, except for the waterfront. I was really happy to be here, and I'm really excited to see how throughout the almost 30 years now, it has progressed as a city, and I see a lot of things happening. Perfect, thank you. So, let's see, I'm going to look there. Okay. No, we'll wait for a second. It's okay, it's for the... No, I don't think it's up yet. Should I try to... Okay, good. I have tried it. Yes, perfect. Thank you. It's here. In Greek, and maybe you also say here the technical things. The first ones are for the bad eye. So I'm sure we will move great forward. So who am I? As Laska already introduced, I'm from Greece. I'm an urban planner and geographer. And I have many hats. I'm trying to minimize them now into 3, or maybe 2. I'm here representing Placemaking Europe, which is the European network community of placemakers around Europe and internationally. And I'm also co-founder of the local office of STIPO. STIPO is an agency, it's an office based in the Netherlands, working on this kind of new urbanism with a lot of participation and placemaking in its core. But let me introduce first of all who is Placemaking Europe. Indeed, we started around 2017-18 discussing that we really need a network, something, an organization, a body that will be able to represent the needs of the community around Europe of placemaking. We are a European network, but of course we have many members from all around the world that continue to come to our events and support all the activities that we are doing. So what we actually do is to develop and share the knowledge that we co-create as a network, use them in order to produce new tools that can be used by placemakers. And the most important thing that we're currently trying to do is to systematize. So how do all these practices that we do on the ground in our cities become part of the narrative, become part of the system? And how do we find our municipalities in order to produce better and more human-scale cities? We are a value-driven organization. We are not here just to make projects. We are here to listen. We are here to produce our common capacities. So if you follow what we are doing, we are very much co-creative. We let the members of our community take their own initiative, and we are there to facilitate it. And of course, we create very, very good and fun events. So our main event is Placemaking Week Europe. It started happening, let's say, around 2017, where the global event was hosted in Amsterdam. And we were there able to meet each other and realize that, okay, this is the right moment to start doing something of our own community and of our own region of Europe. Then we met in Stockholm in 2018 in a smaller event that we started to discuss about the effect that placemaking might have on gentrification and on the lack of inclusion sometimes. So we were also trying to be very critical with the work we were doing back in the time. And then our formal first event as Placemaking Europe, it happened in Valencia in 2019. We were all there in an amazing waterfront. Angel, you were also there. We were having an amazing time with lots of workshops, discussions, partying, I have to say. And it was really about connecting. And last year in Pontevedra, after the pandemic, it was a very important moment for us because we were able to realign. We realized that in 2019, we were very much discussing about what's happening on the field, and in 2022, we were discussing what is important to go to the system. And we will continue this discussion in the end of September, in a few days from now, in Strasbourg. We will finally, for the first time, have people coming not only from the grassroots, that it's very important, but also from the municipalities, from regions, from European Union. And it's really important to start building these bridges all around Europe in order to discuss important issues like democracy, which is at the great urgency right around all around Europe, not only in our region, but also how to make it more financially sustainable for all of us. I will get into that more. And I have to tell you, we are all really lovely people, and I know I'm praising my own thing, but it's really nice to be part of it and participate. So moving a little bit ahead, what is placemaking and what is it that brings this community together? Placemaking, as usually I try to present, for me does not have one definition, and I try to leave it like that, because it's very important to interpret it according to your local context and to your own needs. So it can become a tool, something that we come here and do something and practice, but it can also become a philosophy, an approach of how you see things and you develop your communities and your places. But let me share some first important things that we usually share when we are talking about placemaking. So try to think also in your own language what differentiates a space from a place. A space can be something that has specific characteristics, specific features. It can be green, it can be very concrete, it can be a building, it can be something that hosts many people or few people. It's mostly about the physical characteristics. The place is the content, if I can say so. It is about the activities that are happening in there. It is about the experience that this space can have. So the difference between the one of the two, this is the geographer in me, is the enhanced version, the place is the enhanced version of a space. But how do we do that? The parents of placemaking are what we commonly say, two Americans. It is Jane Jacobs, who was a journalist, really covering what was happening in the American cities, and especially in New York back in the 60s, that many communities and public space were a danger from the completely top-down architecture and urban planning that was happening. They wanted the completely car-oriented city. Highways were taking over neighborhoods, were taking over, of course, poor neighborhoods and poor communities. So she was really writing and advocating for that. She was running local rallies against this. And then we have Holly White. He was in profession an urbanist, and he was one of the first ones to put a time-lapse camera on top of a New York building to start noticing what is happening on the bottom level. Generally, in urban planning, we tend to go above a map or in our computers and start designing on a map. But this is not how the city is actually lived. It's not how it's actually planned. You need to be able to observe. And his observations of how people move around a specific public space and in the street and in the city, how do they come together, how do they come apart, what makes them move, became the first building blocks of the theory and methodology of placemaking. And he was also the founder of the Project for Public Spaces, which is the main organization advocating for placemaking for the last 40, 50 years. And his, let's say, his follow-up leader of Project for Public Spaces, Fred Kent, used to say that it is amazing how easy it is to design a public space and how easy it is to make it a place that no one will want to come. And architects and urban planners, we keep designing these public spaces, especially in the last century, very often. Because we focus on the car. If you design cities around cars and vehicles and capital, if I can say so, this is my own contribution, of course you develop cities around cars. But what if you start designing cities with a human-centered approach? What does a child need for its city and its public space? What does a mother with a child need? What does an elderly person need? What does a female person need and what does a male person need? What do people of color? So what do people of vulnerabilities need with accessibility issues? If we don't start thinking with the human in mind, we will continue building the same mistakes. And I see it in Athens. I don't know how it is for you. Even though we have all this theory in hand by now, the least for the 40, 50 years, we continue making our own mistakes, the same mistakes. So we really need a change of thinking and narrative. This is a lovely picture again used from, I think it's from France. Look at a bench. A bench is just an element that you will put out. It's not the whole public space design. But how does this activate sociability? You already see that around the bench, that it is well designed. You see how many different groups of people of different ages, of how they stay around it. Some people are talking with each other. Some people are overhearing other people talking, gossiping. Some people can just sit there alone. And this is good design. And this is from my hometown, Thessaloniki. If you see it just as an urban planner or urban designer, you would say, okay, this is a waterfront area, it lacks green. First mistake. Maybe it's not so accessible. Second mistake, because it is gated on the front. But there are elements of it, like this bench that you see there, that bring this kind of warmth that you need in public space. When you see people hugging each other and taking off the shoes, it means that something is actually going very well with this public space. And it's actually one of my favorite public spaces. A little bit more theory. Please try to bear with me. I will go through it a little bit faster than I usually do in a training, but it's just to give you a little bit of an idea, a little bit of framework. So in placemaking, we say that there are three main elements that you need to keep in mind constantly when you're overlooking and about to plan and program a public space or a place. The first one is the design-led, what we call the hardware. The hardware are the design elements of a space, of a place. It can be the benches, it can be the materials that you're going to use, it can be the facade, the front part of a building that you're going to design. It has to do with the more technical, physical elements of a place. The second one is the software. The software are the kind of programming, the kind of activities, the kind of people you want to invite into that place. So it is this human-centered design that I was mentioning before. So what kind of activities do we need to program, or what kind of, yes, exactly, activation would we like this place to have? And the third one that we usually forget, especially the planners and designers, is the orgware. Okay, you have designed a space, you have built it, looks amazing. You have also invited people to participate in it. They are part of it, they are activating it. But what happens next? How are you going to maintain this place? How are people going to continue contributing to its development? So the orgware is all the system behind a place that allows it to actually be sustainable. It can contain also funding mechanisms. Sometimes, I don't know, again, I'm going back to Thessaloniki. We have developed an amazing waterfront. It won many architectural design competitions, but the municipality did not have the money to continue maintaining it. So after 5 years, it's almost a disaster, and we continue having this discussion, okay, amazing place with fountains and green, luscious, who is going to pay for that? So the orgware needs to be there from the very first part of your design thinking in order to be able to maintain it. Another important element of the orgware is the community. How are you going to organize your community in order to continue keeping this place active? It can be a neighborhood group, it can be a non-profit organization taking care of it. So these are things to think. And the last is, I'm staying here a little bit because I think it's very relevant to most of us, licenses and legislation. What are the licensing systems behind developing a place? Or what is the legislation, national or local, that will allow you to do the things you would like to do? So after the hardware, software, and orgware, another very interesting way of approaching a place is the power of 10. So this diagram is from the Project for Public Spaces, and what it says. Let's say that we have the bigger scale, we have the city of Sofia. Sofia, it is important that it consists of at least 10 destinations, districts. It can be the area that we are here is one of these destinations. So how can we develop a city that have many of these interesting destinations? And in each destination, like the area that we're currently in, how can you have at least 10 places that will attract people and will have interest? The smaller area that we are here, and also the building, is one of these places. And then going even deep inside it, this place, this building that we're currently in, how can it have 10 places or 10 activities in order to keep it active on a daily basis, morning and evening? And when you move from the building to the city, as a scaling up, it can prompt you how to think of activation and of programming in a much more active and proactive way. And you can think of the power of 10 again when you're thinking about your facades. Let's see at this shop. At this shop, which is a bookstore, you can see at least 10 things happening, just by the way it is programmed and designed. You have sitting places, the sidewalk is wide enough so that people can also pass by without any problem, but also sit there to discuss. You can walk your dog. You can go inside and outside because the door is clear. You can see information and posters very clearly so that you get informed about the local community events. So how can you put all these things up, even the smallest things, happening at the same time? And the third thing I wanted to share with you about placemaking, I won't go into deep with that, is this wheel. These are, let's say, the attributes that we're looking forward for a place to have. It has to do with sociability. No, I will start with comfort and mean image. How do we make a place look comfortable, accessible, and nice? It has to do with the hardware a little bit, but it also overlaps with the software. Then how do we make this place accessible? Accessible not only in terms of accessibility, so how is it possible for everyone to reach the place, but how is it also recognizable inside the urban grid? Can I access it by bus? Can I access it by public transport? Is there enough signage to show me the way to this place? And then we have the users and activities. This is the software aspect. So to what extent can we make a place really active, really sociable for everyone? And the sociability, do we really see a place that is welcoming? Do we see people in groups, but also alone, feeling welcome to sit there and be there? Placemaking can be a very iterative process. It can make circles. One way, or it can become really chaotic as well. That's also fine. One of the ways that we have tried to put it into words in order to be able to share it is this one. So first of all, and I will take the example of the building, you need to define a place and a community that you want, that has a need or it has an opportunity to work with. And of course, understand who are the stakeholders involved around this place. Then you go with your community, with the stakeholders, and evaluate this place. What is working well, and what needs to be further improved. And along this evaluation, you need to think, whom else do I need to bring on board in order to make this happen? And the make this happen is the place vision. And it's not just an architect in an office deciding what is the vision for the place, but we need to collectively decide where we would like to see this place going on in the next 2, 5, 10 years. But in order to make your vision happen, you cannot wait until 5 years from now. You need to start doing things today. So you need to have your short-term experiments. One of these things happening right now here, the conference, is one of these short-term experiences that can help us envision what can happen in the years to come. And of course then, you can go to the long term and continue re-evaluating. So the participatory workshop happening on the second step is not only a one-time event. You need to continue, keep going with your community and discussing and deliberating. The lighter, quicker, cheaper approach of making things happen now, quickly, as easy as possible, and cheap. One of the biggest mistakes we have also done in Athens now, we have developed the municipality of Athens developed a tactical urbanism project for mobility during the pandemic that costed us a lot of money. A lot of money. I mean, a bench only, I think it costed 2,000 euros. This is not lighter, quicker, cheaper. This is not how you activate actually your community, because people feel detached from it sometimes. But imagine making a bench or making something with paint, just by painting it, or just by taking scrap wood and making it into benches. These are some examples for tactical urbanism. I will go into it a little bit further. Laska, how am I doing in time? Faster, eh? Okay. You know my percent. Okay. The most important thing that we say in placemaking, you heard me repeating it time and time, is that the community is the expert. This is one of our examples, what we do in order to see who the community is. We take a camper van, we go on the square, and we live on the square for a few days. And you will see the most amazing things happening there, because people will come from the rest of the buildings there and start giving us breakfast, coffee. They will sit to have a discussion. This is the only way you can go and meet your community. You cannot wear your suit like I'm doing today and go then and say, good morning, I'm here from the behalf of the municipality and we're going to talk. It's not happening like that. Because people will be like, no, who are you and what do you want? This is my neighborhood. I have agency over my neighborhood. Unless you break the boundaries of what it means to be part of the place, you're not going to make it. Very quickly, the placemaking example, because I want to make a point. The first placemaking example comes from New York. It was this park, Bryant Park. It was really no place, actually, to go. It had lots of criminality. It has a lot of issues. But it was lucky enough because it had a library taking care of it. So the library at some point decided, okay, I'm going to activate the park with things that will bring people inside instead of pushing people out. I will bring more people inside. So they started doing this kind of programming, different things that they would host inside the park, and they had different program between summer and winter time. So in the summer they would have like places to sit and food and games and concerts, and in the winter they would put an ice skating hall in the middle of the park and people would come. And this made it one of the most popular parks, I mean after the obvious ones, for people to come inside. And it's interesting because you will see that the community and the library has adopted the park and is responsible for its programming. The second example is from Rotterdam, a little bit more European. Again, we have an award-winning public space. It's the main square of Rotterdam, Stadshouseburg. Around it, it has cultural institutions. It has a cinema, it has the theater, it has also a conservatorium. But it was a no place to go. No one will go there. I don't know if you've been to Rotterdam. It's a waterfront city. If you sit in the middle of the square in the winter, you will probably be taken off by the wind or the rain or something of both. And this is how it used to be back in the 60s and 70s. So it had water. People could really interact with the square. Something went wrong there. So the idea was, how are we going to bring more people on the square, but not redesigning it again, because they gave a lot of money to redesign and they won a lot of awards. The idea was to bring the flying carpet. Just by putting an artistic installation, this is how we would call it in architecture, people start using the public space again and doing programming. The flying carpet was supported financially as well from the cultural institutions of the square. This is the orgware that I was mentioning. The hardware is the carpet, and the software is the people coming there to have picnic, to do yoga, to have festivals. And even in wintertime, they started programming it again. So the winning element was that they were able to collaborate. Collaboration brings successes. And now they're going to redevelop the square with a less budget from what I know, but based on the key learnings that they had from the placemaking activation. But opa. I guess you also say it here. Let's make a break. Because so far, what I have been showing is examples from New York, amazing. I have never been there, but I want to go. From Rotterdam, okay, I have lived partly there. But these are the stories I kept listening for the past 10 years of my life. Stories from the West, from the North, with lots of money running usually, with much more easy legislation. But I would like to focus now here on our community, here in the Balkans. We have a completely different story to share. And in order to share this story and understand who our community is here, and what are our needs, and what are our examples, what are already our wins, we need to have empathy. Empathy is this is not going to play now, but I highly recommend that you check it out on YouTube. It's a very nice illustration about empathy. Empathy is about putting yourself into the shoes of the other. Instead of advising from your own position, try to go into his shoes or his level or anything. And this is what we need to start doing now in our region. The Western examples are great as an inspiration, but we need to start putting them into our own shoes. So last year in Placemaking Week, we had a regional meeting for the first time, the Balkans. Vlad was there. It was a very emotional moment. It was the very first time placemakers from our region were discussing the challenges and opportunities that we're facing. Things that had to do with politics, with finances, with legislation. Lots of it. I will stop it now because I'm also getting emotional again. But why do we need to talk about our community and why it is important to connect? I will share my most recent project example. Maybe it will trigger something. So in 2022, we submitted a proposal to the Bloomberg Philanthropist Foundation in order to bring the Asphalt Art initiative, which is a tactical urbanism for mobility project, to Athens. And when I say we, that's interesting stuff, it is our agency, so private, if I can say so, non-profit. We went to municipality and we said, look, we know you have this mobility issue because we have been working in the past years with you. We have this funding. I will write the proposal for you. You don't have to pay me. And if we get it, we will run the project. So this is the outcome of it. It was completed in June 2023. It was an intersection. I won't go into the technicalities of it, but it was an amazing moment because we were finally able to do something very practical together with the community. Amazing pictures, children were painting. We are now testing if the intervention was actually successful. People of different ages were really engaged. We had lots of fun and festival. But in the end, before these nice pictures, it was just myself and 4 other people for 1 week painting in the hot Greek summer weather, the street. And yeah, also, you know, almost in a dangerous situation, we were trying to make things happen. And this is how it looks today. These pictures are taken from the day before. Maintenance. It's only 3 months after, also during summer vacation. So what I would like to share with you is maybe something that might seem familiar to you. So how do we start as a grassroots approach? We want to make a change into our neighborhood. But we have to collaborate with the municipality. How do we find each other? What do we need to do in order for contracting? This was a huge problem that we had. How are they going to do the procurement process in order to be able to take placemakers, experts like us? And then after we did the contracting, how are we going to do the design? Because the legislation, the Greek legislation, does not really allow this kind of interventions to happen. We had to figure out ourselves. And then, after we have skipped everything, we made the design and everything, we needed to activate the local community, who didn't want really to be activated because it was political period. We have elections coming up as well in October, so they were a little bit afraid of, you know, I don't want to take a position, I don't want to support the mayor, so it was very difficult to do it. The only people who really followed up were children, don't care about elections, and elderly, who also don't care about elections. The next thing that I think was the most challenging for me is that I went to the municipality and said, okay, we have designed it, we have activated the community, we did participation, now we need to build it, eh? I said, okay. And I asked them, okay, I need some workers. I said, we don't have them. And I was like, what do you mean? They didn't have the workers. They didn't have 3 or 4 people that would help us really put the bollards on the asphalt or help us paint. So that's why it was a group of 4 people, 4 women, I also have to say, painting for 1 week from morning till the late midnight street. And then it's also the question of maintenance that we are now starting to discuss it with the municipality, so who is going to maintain it? And because they also want to replicate it in other points, the mayor really liked it as an approach. How are you going to maintain it? How are you going to replicate it if you don't have the resources to do it? If you don't have the community on board? Who is going to do the community work? So these are just some things that I wanted to share and ask you if this sounds familiar. Because whenever I'm sharing this challenging with my colleagues in the Netherlands or in Norway or anywhere else, I'm like, okay, we have the funding, we will pay the expert, we have the technical support, we have the legislation. This is not the case. So the community is the expert. And I don't mean only the community who is out and we are asked to engage, but the community is also ourselves now here today. So we need to figure out how we will make our own place work. We need to develop our own understanding of our context and our system, nationally and regionally. And we need to develop our own commonalities. What do we have in common as challenges and opportunities? Because we have many opportunities in our region. We need to develop our own narrative. How do we speak about it? How do we make it more, how do we make more sense of what we have? And we need to do it with empathy. Thank you very much for that. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day.